Hi everyone, it's Belinda here from Coffee with Belinda Downs. I have my coffee and you're here. So let's start. Oh my gosh, we've got a guest. Hi Zoe.
Hi, Belinda.
This is Zoe Cross. I'm just reading my notes here. She's in Frankfurt in Germany. So we'll talk about the time difference in a moment. But Zoe is an international life and business coach, and we're going to have a conversation about self-esteem and I'm sure a few other things. So first things first, what's the time there, Zoe?
Here it's 7:30. Yeah, half past
Okay.
7 in the evening.
Oh, okay. So
Hours.
if I can show you, oops, if I get it right here, it's
Oh yeah.
5:30 in the morning. So I've named this series. I'll just get out of this. I've named this series, it's 5 a.m. in Newey West, because I found that the best time for me to do interviews is actually around this time. If you've watched my YouTube videos at all, and I'm saying this to everybody, if you've watched my YouTube videos, you'll know the struggle that I've been having with building work. And the building work starts at 7 a.m. So we have 1.5 hours. I don't know whether we'll take that long. We'll just do what we do. But yeah, so I do actually have a good cup of coffee here. So Zoe, first question, and then we'll just talk however we want to talk. Interpret this question any way you want. Why is healthy self-esteem important?
I'd like to start with a picture I just heard at the weekend. I was on this seminar at the weekend, and I think self-esteem. What was done at the weekend? There was this picture of an apple tree, and so you had this tree. And you had a tree with branches, and you had the apples, shiny apples. I don't know how big the apples were, but there were at least apples. Then you had the tree trunk, then you had grass, and then you could see the roots of the apple tree.
Okay.
And I hope I can get this right, but basically, when it comes to self-esteem, you can compare yourself to an apple tree, or I love this simile between people and an apple tree, and you can like the apples, you can wash the apples, you can tweak the leaves on the tree, you can prune the tree, so you can give yourself a good haircut. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You can do things on the outside of people. Cosmetic surgery or clothes. I'm not going that far, but clothes, or and you can pretend to be somebody, whoever you like. But basically, what it comes or boils down to is how the roots. How do you treat yourself, and what are you made of on the inside?
Okay, so in other words, you can look a particular way, but being a particular way is better.
That's it. Because being what you are, how you feel like, what your feelings are about yourself, whether you're dressed, whether you're not dressed, what you really look like on the outside, it all dials down to your attitude towards yourself. And that will also influence what is going on the outside.
So if I've got this right, the tree can look any particular way. So yes, it's true that the tree will look healthy if the roots are healthy, but at the same time, it can look a bit off center. It can, have apples that are a particular color, or the leaves have a different shape, but it's the root system that is the important part.
Yes, yeah. Just another part of the simile which comes to me at the moment. Actually, one of my, going away from the apple tree, although that would be still a great example, but I love bamboo.
Okay.
I love bamboo, but I'll going back to the apple tree. Let's say you have a storm. Let's say you have a
Okay.
storm and this apple tree is really, maybe this apple tree is a bit, is buffeted by the wind and loses a branch or two, or
Yeah.
but if the roots are strong enough, it will survive. It may become a bit crooked, but it will survive. And that's the way I see us humans. If we have a strong sense of self-worth, um, we may have storms, and most of us have some storm or several during the course of our lives. But it's what's inside us, what we're made of, what our stories are that we tell ourselves that help us to survive, to thrive rather than just survive.
So the example that I was given was that I can say something like, well, that thing that I did was really silly, but I'm not silly. Is that another way of looking at it?
That's a very good way of looking at it. To say, yeah, okay, we all make mistakes, and okay, I'm not happy about the way I behaved in that situation, or I just made a mistake in that situation, or you made a mistake in that situation, but that's part of being human, and that doesn't take away from you as a person.
Yeah.
But that's a very important distinction to make.
So we were talking before, Zoe and I were talking before about the way that in many Australian interviews with people with facial differences, it's always, this is Belinda and she has this condition. Now, I don't actually agree with this, and Zoe knows this. But I do find that people assume that, one, I don't have good self-esteem. I do. I really do have good self-esteem. But they assume it because they project onto me, and I think this happens for many people with facial differences, they project onto me some kind of sad story, which includes not having good self-esteem. I got my self-esteem not from looking the way I do, but from meeting challenges in my life and succeeding in those challenges. So, yeah, can you talk a bit about how people will see self-esteem as the leaves and the apples rather than the roots when people meet us? Does that make sense?
Um,
So let me explain it like this. When people meet me, they just automatically assume, so the first time I've met them, they automatically assume that I'm sad and lonely and that I don't like myself, because they think that that's how they would feel if they looked like me. So they're looking at the leaves and the apples and all that sort of thing. But what they're not seeing is the root system. And I hope I have a really deep root system that has been looked after in the 48 years that I've been on planet Earth. But you find that self-esteem in that sense is a bit problematic, where people say, oh, they won't like me because, I'm a particular way, that sort of thing.
Yes. I just recently was talking to somebody, and it was actually quite hard for me, but I knew where they were coming from. It wasn't just, I mean, that's totally unfortunately what happens. That people will say, I don't see why I should even try to find a partner, because I can't imagine that anyone would like me, anyone would be interested in me because of the way I look, and very, very difficult situation of self-sabotage is
Yeah.
this person I was speaking to recently was saying that, so I said, what would it be like for you to have a partner? So what would it be like? Imagine what it would be like for you to have somebody going out with you. And she said to me, and this really was quite difficult to swallow, but I totally understood. Yeah, I would be thinking that he is going out with me right now because he's in between women.
Oh,
And I am a
wow.
stopgap. And
Wow.
that was, yeah. So I was
Oh,
trying to ask her to say, yeah, what's your ideal situation? And she couldn't, that was the best that she could do.
oh,
It's
wow.
really sad.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that self-limiting thought would be really detrimental to a relationship, and they would be always expecting to be, I don't know what the word is there, but dropped or, you know, pushed
Yeah,
aside. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, there's this assumption that our lives just revolve around our faces. That's not true. It's not true, is it?
So not true indeed.
Yeah. So the thing that dictates my relationships, my intimate relationships, and I don't mean sexual here, is that I'm actually asexual. So I'm not attracted to persons, places, or things. So for me, and I don't, we've kind of had a discussion, the fellow and I, but yeah, we're both not interested in that type of relationship. So that type of relationship works for us. But as you're saying, neither of us are self-sabotaging. We're not saying, oh, you know, I'm not worthy, you know, I'm not worthwhile enough to have the relationship that I want. It's a lot to take in, isn't it? I think that's the first time that I've actually said in one of my videos that I'm asexual, but I've been out for nearly 10 years, so that's not a problem. But it's important here because
Yeah.
people think that self-esteem is tied up in the way that you look, and it's not. The things that speak into my relationships are my sexuality and my self-esteem.
But it reminds me of a discussion a short discussion that I had recently with my partner, my yeah, my partner, my other half. But we don't actually live together.
Yep.
I don't know. There's this term it's well known in Germany, at least. I'm not sure if it's a sort of strange concoction in Germany, but there's this thing about living apart together.
Yes, we have that here too. Yeah.
Okay, and it's actually there are several things that make it easier. There's the commuting. There's a very large collection of books in his case, and I'm very much at home here. But we live far enough apart for commuting that it would be tiring.
Yep. Okay.
And at the same time, both of us have our different experiences. We have lived for a very long time on our own. But we had this discussion recently because I said, I'm not prepared. I want to be, I need to be authentic. I need to be truthful. I want to say things the way they are in my life. And that is just part of my life, that we are together. We see each other sometimes during the week, and at the weekends we'll go on holiday together. Can be together for several days on end, which is wonderful luxury. But there are people out there who will say, this is not really, does this qualify as a relationship? And we said, well, it depends whether both parts, and this is also part of self-esteem, are both parts happy the way it is? Or is one side perhaps letting the other side have their way because one side doesn't really have the self-esteem to say, yeah, I'm not quite so happy about this. And we discussed, yeah, well, this is the way we want to live our relationship, and both of us are very happy the way it is. But yeah, that's also self-esteem as well as about how you want to have your relationships with anyone. And then also to be able say, yeah, I am confident enough in myself to know that this is what I want.
Yeah.
I'm not harming anyone.
Yep.
And other people may have their opinions, but I don't have to take them to heart.
Yep. Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is that two people who, hang on 2 seconds. That's better. Two people who have healthy self-esteem and self-worth will negotiate a relationship that includes both of them and their real authentic selves. So in the fellows in my case, but yeah, we live kind of separate lives, but kind of together.
Mm-hmm.
And people are often surprised that we know each other. He knows some of the people that I work with, but the people that I work with didn't know that the fellow and I knew each other. It's really funny. But the reason I'm saying this is that if you can be your authentic self, you can stand by yourself or in the relationship. So you're not depending on the relationship for your sense of self. You bring your sense of self to the relationship. Is that fair enough?
Oh, absolutely. Many times, and well, I had to learn this myself over the years, but many times what I see is that people in relationships or thinking about going into relationships or already in relationships really would do well to realize that it's nice to have company.
Yeah.
But company is not, the purpose of company is not first and foremost to make you happy. Well, it should make you happy. Company should make you happy. But it's not their sole responsibility to make you happy. You should find ways of being fulfilled, of being authentic, of getting what you want from life, and not in a selfish way, but just to make the best out of your life for yourself and others. And then a a partner or a friend is the icing on the cake.
If you have a solid core, this is the way I explain it, if you have a solid core of yourself, you can, the relationship adds to that rather than being part of that core. Because that's a bit dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had discussions about the better half of a relationship. I hear this term, my better half, which is fine. That's a nice way to refer to a respectful and charming way to refer to your other half. Sorry, better half. I think that's a German expression, actually.
Yeah, no, it's here too. We say it's not that common, but yeah, I see that as respectful. But if you're only giving 50% of yourself because you've only got 50% of yourself, then those two 50% don't really make a 100. They make two 50% people. Yep.
And you can enrich. So your life, ideally, you have a fulfilled life, an interesting life, a purpose. And then this other person comes along, and ideally, this person, oh, okay, he or she maybe has a slightly different purpose, but okay, that's interesting. I don't strictly speaking, need this purpose because I've got my own, but it's enriching my life. It's giving my life a new dimension.
Yeah, it actually reminds me, this woman had a philosophy where she would take on the habits, or not the habits, but the hobbies, and she would say yes to everything. She would like the music. She would of her current partner. So her likes and dislikes were the same as his. And I remember talking to one of her boyfriends once that I actually got to know, and he was saying, I feel like I'm dating myself, because she wasn't bringing herself. She had this belief that if she was just more like him, if she liked the music, if she liked his hobbies, if she did everything that he did, then he would like her more. But actually, she disappeared.
I don't think this kind of behavior is, unfortunately, unfortunately, it's not at all limited to people with facial differences. But
yeah, she didn't have a facial difference.
Yeah, but it's very much an issue of self-esteem. Yeah, I want to be liked because I don't like myself. This is often what happens. The danger is people don't realize how much they really don't like themselves, or they're not content, or they don't feel at ease with themselves. And so, well, if I don't feel at ease with myself, you reflect this to your outer environment. And because, yeah, there's this thing about, it's always about energy. It's all about energy. And there is this certain negative energy that you are radiating to the outside. And without saying it specifically, but your behavior, your posture, it all reflects how you're maybe not really that happy with yourself. So please like me, because I don't like myself, and this makes for a very sometimes needy needy behavior, which can be very demanding, very exhausting for the other person.
Yeah.
As your example, that's another way of saying, please like me. I'll do whatever you want for you to like me.
And the irony is, in that situation, it was like she disappeared, so there was nothing to like. Yeah, yeah, there was no me. So
There is, yeah.
Yeah. So there was no self-esteem because there was no self. She disappeared into somebody else's life. Okay. How about we get on to the second question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how can we improve self-worth, self-esteem?
Yeah, great, huge question. And
how long is a piece of string?
yeah, right. I like to start. Well, it is a process. It's always going to be a process. I would maybe one thing I would say, something that you mentioned, which I found very, very, very apt, is taking challenges. But maybe that's a little bit advanced. That is ultimately what really can help people. But self-esteem starts with self self-awareness.
Okay. Yep.
Self-awareness. Who am I? And who am I apart from what I look like? Some of us, a lot of us probably, have had negative comments, put downs, etc., from the outside, and that makes it only all the more important to invest time, preferably on a daily basis,
Yep.
Little at a time, in discovering, self-discovery. Who am I?
Yep.
What do I like? I mean, there are all so many facets to us, as you said earlier, and our lives are so much more, or should be so much more, than just what we look like.
Yep.
What hobbies do we have? What interests, if possible? Remember positive situations.
Mm.
In fact, one. Well, you're not. So I'm not sure if you are really a morning person. Right now, you have to be.
Yeah, I tend to be a morning person, fortunately.
Okay.
This is a good thing.
And the reason I'm asking, well, it's not. I mean, you have such amazing self-esteem, but something that has worked for a lot of people, and I've been a morning person. I've just got more and more of a morning person because of circumstances. But one thing I recommend, because people are busy, life is hectic, we have so many distractions. But what I've found is helpful to make time, preferably every day, for self-discovery, self-awareness. Is, for example, having some kinds, making time in the morning for some kind of morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
And one I think I very much recommend is having some kind of a very brief, simple diary. It could just be something where you write two or three things in every morning. If possible, just slightly more advanced, to come back to that book in the evening.
Okay.
And so let's say I have these elements which I find very, very helpful. Gratitude. What am I actually grateful for?
Mm-hmm.
But also, that's usually something I tend to recommend in the morning because the day's just starting. But then in the evening to look at to say what happened today, and chances are there may have been something negative there. But then to take time to consider what went well today, and or what did I actually do well today? Because that's more because you can have this gratitude. Gratitude is very helpful for a better energy, better more positivity. But focusing on small successes,
Yeah.
and even if it's just I actually dared to go outside today into the street. But just to remind ourselves every day of the small and then eventually bigger successes that we manage to do.
I think that's a really important point, that many people don't reward themselves for doing the small things. And that doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to reward myself with a chocolate bar. It might be something like, I'm going to reward myself with, a chapter of my favorite book, or yeah.
Going out, playing with playing with my cat, or
yeah. The thing that I've found really positive in my life, and this is like one of the challenges, this sort of speaks into one of the challenges I had growing up, and this is like one of the things that spoke into my self-esteem, was that I had a lot of people speaking for me, like my parents, people around me. And it turns out, because of some self-reflection, that and you'll see this in like my Facebook posts and things like that, that first person narratives or people speaking for themselves is really, really important to me. And so I used to get really annoyed because every time somebody spoke for me, it was usually something that wasn't actually true. So I remember one example where a school that I went to, I stayed in the same school roughly my whole education career, except for 1 year where I was told to repeat a year in a different school. And the school introduced me to the students that I was going to go into their class as I'd been burnt in a fire, and I was very shy, and that I was very fragile, none of which is true. And so these were people speaking on my behalf and thinking they were doing the right thing, but it put me and my now friends, we've known each other for 35 plus years, it put us in a very difficult situation, because here they are thinking that I'm fragile, and but actually I wasn't. I was quite robust. And I have a few friends from that time still, which is great. We've known each other a long time now, and they know that the original information that was spoken about me was wrong. So the challenge that I faced was trying to correct that. And I must have done a great job, because I'm still friends with a lot of those people. So that contributed to my self-esteem.
I still encounter that a little bit. No, but not like that. No. Right.
Yeah. So are you saying that people speak for you, or are you saying that you know of people who speak for other people?
I don't see many people. In fact, I hardly ever see people with facial differences in my daily life. Around me, literally around me. So far, because I'm with the Mobius Syndrome Association in Germany, I go there once a year. But I'm glad to say I very rarely see anyone speaking for any of the people with Mobius there.
Okay. Yeah.
That's actually no. What I was thinking was, although I am very sure it happens. What No, I think what I was thinking of, it just reminded me of some interesting experiences in Japan where people couldn't speak for me. No, people could definitely not speak for me, because although Japanese people, I mean, this is not limited to Japanese, but it's a wonderful example because you had two obviously foreign-looking people in Japan. One of them, let's say, one of them was my sister, and the other one was me. And we would be somewhere, maybe in a restaurant, just a very short sequence that the person would try to speak to my sister. He would be looking at her, and it was obvious that they were waiting for an answer from her and not from me. And and we just found it quite hilarious because my sister was feeling a little bit helpless because she couldn't speak the language. And fortunately, I could see what was happening and quickly helped everyone by just speaking Japanese and just being friendly about it. Not in the least angry or just no. She can't speak Japanese. I'm going to have to speak for her. So
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but just stepped in.
Yeah. 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 I think what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, and I'm actually a linguist, so I'm very aware that those situations happen. The thing is, though, that I think that's a really good point. So let me sort of make a finer point here. Being somebody's voice in a language sense is different to being somebody's voice in terms of advocacy. And I think sometimes people talk over the top of people with facial differences because they think they're helping. But what they're actually doing is, unlike your situation with Japanese, they're actually erasing the person. And so what I think what would be happening with, you were saying that you don't meet many people who are mollycoddled, and that's because I think by the time they get to you, they're past that stage. So it's not like you've got parents of 35-year-olds saying, can you help my child? But they're 35. Am I right in that? So by the time they get to you and you're coaching, they're actually independent but need a little bit of assistance rather than somebody coming up and saying, oh, my 35-year-old child needs help.
No, you're right. You're right there. Generally you're right there. I'm just thinking of two two cases where the people are actually living with a parent still. They are adults, young adults. let's say early 20s,
Yep.
early 20s, late 20s. They are still living with parents, but it is still, I am still in discussion with the
Okay.
young adults and not with the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's get really practical here. So I think we're coming to the end of this really cool interview. I've really been enjoying discussing this with you. So to finish up here, what I'd really like us to do is sort of really hone in into some practical things that people can do to at least start that journey of healthy self-esteem. So how about I start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm going to start by quoting you. um, one of the things that I found really helpful, and you've touched on this a few times, but it bears repeating in a really practical sense, is don't be afraid to be on your own and don't be afraid to self-reflect.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean there is that I find with people with low self-esteem don't like being on their own. And so it's kind of like this cycle where people don't like being on their own, so they can't think their own thoughts. They don't know what's important to them. They can't build that core, like as you said at the very start, you know, the root system of the tree. If you can't build that root system, if you don't invest time in yourself, then that root system isn't going to be built.
I also find curiosity.
Okay. Yeah.
I find it's something I think there's an interesting element, and I build it in different ways because I look at each person on a very individual level, because there is also this issue that self-esteem, people come to me with sometimes more situational, if I may say so, situational self-esteem issues. They've made it in certain areas, but in other areas they really have no self-esteem, or very low self-esteem. Um, but curiosity is something I tend to tweak a bit. Curiosity can help to overcome fear. Because a lot of self-esteem is low self-esteem is related to things that we're thinking, what will happen if I do this? And I try to instill a sense of, okay, that you could ask that question, what will happen? What negative thing will happen if I do this? But there's also the other question, what would it be like if you did X and you got a wonderful result, the result that you really would dream of? So I try to balance it out, and I say this curiosity, say, could be a 50-50 chance of the good happening or the bad, and they may disagree, they may say it's more 80-20. But to say, to try to instill this curiosity that life is full of discoveries, and try to be, curiosity is part of being human, really. And if you can try to look at you're trying to do something, such as speak to a person in a cafe, for example, just go up to somebody and say, just say hello. Possibly then walk away. Not even, I mean, it depends where the person is, but just to see this as what's the outcome going to be like? Just to try to be a bit more neutral and say, curiosity can overcome fear to some extent.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that I didn't even consider. And as soon as you started saying it, I was like, yeah, of course, that's a really good point. The next point that I would make is being willing to take risks, sensible risks. And in those sensible risks, like, going into a cafe and saying hi to somebody that you've not met before, in doing those things that are slightly uncomfortable, you kind of build up that self-esteem because you can do it.
And it's going into a cafe, saying hello to somebody you've met before or you haven't met before. I mean, even people you've met before, you've seen, that can still be quite scary at times, for some of us. But then to discover that this person didn't actually bite your head off,
Yeah.
didn't actually hurt you, possibly even smiled at you, that's something that you can then, these small successes. I mean, I'm saying small. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense at all. Because
no, I'm not hearing that. Yeah,
small successes. We need to make small successes, small steps first, before we can take the bigger ones. And again, there's something that we should celebrate. We should write down so that we don't forget. Yes, I actually did that today.
Yeah. Yes. I think this is the last point that I'm going to make. Everybody has the right. It is worthwhile enough to be able to be in that cafe, to go to that park, to be at the movies, to be where they want to be. It's not like, well, I'm too lowly to go out public. Everybody has the is worthwhile to be where they are in a positive sense. I'm not saying that people deserve to be abused. I'm saying that, in a positive sense, people deserve to be in public. People deserve to be safe.
Yeah, I had one more point, and I think that's wonderful. That was wonderful. I think that connects on from your point. That very important. That is a very, very important point. Is that the sense? I also try to instill this sense of worthiness. That's also a sense of connection.
Okay.
I think actually this cafe example is great because, and that to me that leads on completely from what you just said about everyone is worthy of being. Everyone has a right to be in that cafe. You love coffee. Actually, I love coffee. And everyone, if you like coffee, you have every much as much right to be in the cafe as the next person, whatever you look like. And I think what people also, when it comes to self-esteem, something that can help is to think, what have we got in common? What have you got in common with the other people you are currently seeing in this cafe? Well, the first thing is, I mean, just start with the obvious. most of these people they like coffee, cocoa, they like these drinks. Maybe some of them have certain preferences for certain coffee. Maybe some of them come in at the same time as day as you do, because they have jobs to go to, or they don't have jobs to go to, or they have schools. But to remember that even if you may look a little bit different to the rest of the people around you, or there's something that visibly makes you a bit unique, actually, think of, try also to focus on what you have in common with all these other people, because you're in this together.
Yeah. We're all in this together. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so is there any final points that you want to make before we sign off?
I'm
putting Zoe on the spot here.
Yeah. Actually, I've just got this. I've got this phrase that I heard again, but it's not the first time. You probably heard it before. But this very simple phrase of to be, to do, and to have.
Just really briefly before you unpack it, I'm a linguist, and in English, be, do, and have are the primary verbs. So they're the special verbs that can either be a main verb or they can be an auxiliary verb. I'm not going to go any further because I could talk forever on that and we'll miss the point. But yeah, so be, do, and have. You were saying.
And just, I mean, when I look at, because I think the aim that we should all have in life, regardless of where we come from, regardless of what we look like, is to be fulfilled, to be happy, to enjoy our time on this earth. Yeah, going back to the roots, but back to the roots literally, but self-esteem is the basis of all of this, because self-esteem is this self-awareness of who you really are. And in order to find life, to find the joy in life, fulfillment in life, first of all, it's so key to be the person, to allow yourself to be the person who you really are, who you really want to be. Then, who am I really? Then to do, and I'm saying do things sometimes out of your comfort zone, because that's what ultimately gives you the fulfillment. It's not necessarily all the staying at home on the couch because you are too frightened to go outside. Can be comfortable for a while, but it doesn't really bring you the fulfillment that you deserve. So to do the little steps and then bigger steps, and then in order to have the life that you deserve. Yeah.
I think that is a fantastic point to finish on. Thank you so much for joining me, Zoe. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this conversation. So just stay on the line for 2 seconds. And so if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day or night or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm going to keep talking to Zoe off video, and we'll talk to you in the next video.